Welcome to the Microsoft Cloud Option webinar series. My name is Vivek Bhatnagar. I am a CTO and founder for UnifyCloud. Let's talk about the different scenarios. So we have a lot of common scenarios, and this is not, I think, complete list or a very. I'm not calling it like exclusive list. Like there are like more scenarios than them, but in Microsoft Azure you'll find these scenarios very commonly. So migration of Windows servers, migration of SQL servers, and then you migrate applications which are written by .NET, PHP, and Java, then Linux and open source databases, SAP databases, and finally specialized workload like NetApps. And a lot of guidance available, and I'm not going to go detail in these workload migration, but if you look at Microsoft documentation, like you will find like a lot of guidance available, like how these workload can be migrated, and how these things are, what minor differentiation in migration of these things. So if I bring that page just to share the information where you can find the information. So you can see on the left-hand side, like it is a lot of detail, like how to migrate a Windows Server workload, and a lot of information here that you can read. You can download a lot of standard scripts from GitHub and follow the process of migration. So our objective is not to go through this, but just make sure that we can show you the where you can find more guidance, like if you are migrating a Java application, SQL servers, and all. And Microsoft is very good in keeping these guidance very much updated. So you can always look at these guidance here and see that how you can migrate these workload. Some workloads are very currently like much in demand for migration. If you look at like Windows Server 2008 and R2, these are like actually going out of support from Microsoft. So there are a lot of customers are looking to migrate their Windows SQL Server 8 and 8 R2 to basically to avoid end of service charges from Microsoft. So Microsoft is actually helping a lot of customers to migrate them in Azure. If customer migrate them to Azure, they will get 3 years of extended security updates. There are tools available to host them, and also like other help from Microsoft. So it's a big opportunity to move these to Microsoft Azure, and maybe the Microsoft Azure is also providing a lot of discounts so that it is always cheaper to move to Microsoft and run for Microsoft. So till now, like we spoke about different scenarios and other thing, but there are like few best practices that you need to make sure like while migrating to the cloud. And one of them, just make sure that the first landing zone you are creating that is like created correctly, and few of the things like you are following customer naming standard or Azure standard naming standards. You are arranging tagging your all resources. The resources are properly organized to help you with the costing and other aspect of things, and you have your identity architecture in place. These are the like 5 more things that you need to think about before you start migrating things, like your compute architecture, your networking architecture, storage, and finally management of these things. We have gone through all of these in different sections, but there are a lot of information available. How do you create around this, and how do you validate whether you have created your first landing zone using these? The idea is to give you more and more information. But as you move into a complex workloads, then you actually look at maybe expanding these kinds of information, and these things actually mean different things. Maybe, for example, in case of innovation, like in place of compute on a VM, you are doing on app services, or you are using PaaS-based databases and endpoint type networks. So these are innovation type of thing, but it is just what you need. So if you need a simpler migration zone, you can create a simpler migration zone. Or if you are migrating a application which need complex support and need innovation, then these are the different options. And so it is very easy to go through these and look at your applications, and then build a proper zones. And similarly, there are like a list of tools typically we go and discuss all these tools in the in the end, but I would like to insert these slides of the tool in between so that I can discuss it end to end. So these are tools available for you in different phases when you do. So as I given you example of assessment of apps and migration, apps database and all, the tools are available: Azure Migrate, Azure Data Migration Assistance, SQL Server Migration Assistance. So these all tools are free from Microsoft. For migration phase, you have site recovery, you have a data box to migrate your large databases or large data. You also can use right now Azure Migrate Hub as part of migration, because that has like a now improved migration and you don't need to use site recovery. You can use Azure migration like agentless migration. So it's an improvement. And finally, in the cost management, you can use Azure Cost Management Services and many other services like Azure Security Center and Azure Advisor, health services, multi services available, which can help you optimize and secure. So these are tools available, like which we would like to talk about. Definitely, like there are some aspect of planning like your first workload, and this is a repeat of the section that which we have already discussed, but I thought that I should include at least one slide. It's very important to select the first workload, because it represent a part of your learning, uh, so that you learn in this migration process. It should be a complete iterative process. It should be low impact. It should not be very complex workload. It should not have a compliance requirement, third-party compliance requirements. Should not impact a huge amount of users. So there are a few things that you need to consider, all listed here for your information, and then do the first workload and the first uh, I should say first landing zone. I highly advise that when you moving your first workload, then don't get into that paralysis of analysis. Like you select a simpler thing and move on to Azure. In the process, you learn and then use that feedback to move your complex workload, and you increase the complexity as you move here. So the next step is like once you start doing is how do you mature this process, and this is just a this slide is just to represent like different maturity you built in. So you can see that as you keep migrating and repeating this process of assess, migrate, optimize, secure, and manage multiple times, you actually built on like on different way, quickly evaluating and assessment. You can actually use the standardized processes. You can have a data-driven testing. You can optimize with automation and other things. So these are the things that you can add, like maybe not the first iteration, but when you needs to third or fourth iteration, you can actually have these things built in and try to improve this whole migration process, and build more and more efficiency to it. Just one more example of like how do we mature processes. So you can see the first workload, maybe the simpler workload that which we have done, and we have just used simpler Microsoft migration guides and readiness guide to do it. It's not a complex one, but as we move to the complex one, then basically we have to use a mature migration processes for our business people and all. So these are a few steps listed, and it is like it is a process of continuous improvement. So you can see that um, these are some of the tools available in your Azure portal, which you can always look and make sure that you are using these inputs to make sure you are continuously improving the process of migration. You are continuously able to right size your resources very close to after migration state. You should able to apply all kinds of benefits. You should able to increase the guidance which is generated for the cost. You can apply the guidance for the cost. Azure, like you can use the Azure Migrate for your security in the recommendation. So it is basically maturing the migration process and run it as a very well oiled machines. These are the screenshots from your different tools. Typical, these are these are like from tools like Azure Advisor or Azure Cost Management and all those services here.